The boy stood frozen in the middle of the country club lobby while adults stared at him like he was a problem that needed removing. His hand shook against his chest as his breathing grew louder, uneven and desperate. A security guard held his wrist firmly, ignoring the way the boy flinched every time someone raised their voice. Guests formed a loose circle, whispering and watching as if this were part of the evening's entertainment. Phones were lifted, lenses aimed, curiosity feeding on discomfort. "He took my bracelet," a woman snapped, her voice sharp with certainty. "I know he did." The boy tried to speak, but nothing came out. His mouth moved, his eyes darted, and panic spread across his face in a way that only cruelty misunderstood. Someone scoffed. Someone else muttered that he didn't belong there anyway. The guard tightened his grip, then a quiet voice cut through the noise. "He didn't steal anything." Nia Thompson stepped forward from the service hallway, her heart pounding harder than her feet hitting the marble floor. Heads turned instantly. The manager frowned, irritation written across his face. "And who asked you?" he said before Nia could answer. Another voice shouted from the crowd, "Search her bag too." The room shifted, and Nia realized they weren't just accusing a boy anymore. They were hunting for someone to humiliate. Nia Thompson learned early that silence was never protection. Their apartment sat on the fourth floor of a building most people passed without noticing. The paint in the hallway peeled in thin strips, and the elevator broke down more often than it worked. Still, Nia treated that place like it mattered because it did. She woke every morning at 5:45, 13 minutes before her mother, because routine meant safety in their home. Her little sister needed order to feel calm. Lila was 8 years old, autistic and mostly nonverbal. She lined her shoes by color, stacked her books by height, and hummed when the world felt gentle enough to handle. Loud sounds made her curl inward. Sudden touch made her panic. Nia learned these patterns before she learned algebra. She became fluent in patience before she ever raised her voice. Their mother, Denise Thompson, worked 2 jobs and still managed to smile when she came home. Catering during the day, cleaning offices at night. She carried herself with pride that no paycheck could buy. She reminded her daughters every morning that dignity was something no one could take, unless you handed it over. And I listened. School was not kind to kids who noticed too much. Teachers praised Nia for being mature, a word often used when children grow up too fast. Classmates saw her as quiet, invisible, someone easy to overlook. She learned to survive by observing, not reacting. She kept her head down, her grades high, and her future carefully folded in her backpack. College letters were starting to arrive. That afternoon, Nia had an interview scheduled with a local scholarship board. She ironed her blazer twice, not because it was wrinkled, but because it was the only one she owned. The shoes on her feet pinched slightly, but she wore them anyway. This interview mattered. It wasn't just about her. It was about escape, stability, and being able to help her mother breathe easier. Before leaving, Denise asked her to stop by the country club. "They're short-staffed today," her mother said. "I'll be running late. Can you drop off the paperwork for me?" Nia agreed without hesitation. The country club felt like another world. Wide hallways, polished floors, soft music playing in the background. The air smelled expensive, like money and comfort blended together. Nia walked carefully, aware of how she looked among people who never worried about rent. She stayed near the service quarters, where staff belonged. That was when she saw the boy. He stood near the front desk, rocking slightly, his hands moving in small repeated motions. His eyes darted around the room, overwhelmed by the noise and movement. Nia recognized the signs instantly. Her chest tightened. She watched from a distance as a woman approached the desk, frustration written across her face. Minutes later, the accusation came. Security moved quickly, eager to prove usefulness. No one asked questions. No one knelt down to meet the boy at eye level. No one considered that his distress came from fear, not guilt. The crowd gathered fast, drawn by the comfort of someone else's shame. Nia felt something twist inside her. She thought of Lila, frozen during a grocery store meltdown while strangers stared. She thought of the way people assumed the worst when behavior didn't fit their understanding. She thought of every time her sister was treated like a burden, instead of a child. That memory pushed her forward. Now, standing in the center of the lobby, Nia felt the weight of every eye on her. The manager looked at her like she was an inconvenience. The woman missing her bracelet crossed her arms, lips pressed tight with suspicion. Security waited for instruction. Nia's heart raced, but her voice stayed steady. He's overwhelmed, she said again. He needs space. The manager sighed. This doesn't concern you. It does, Nia replied. Because you're treating him like a criminal instead of a child. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The woman scoffed. Of course you'd say that. Nia didn't miss the implication. She noticed how the guard loosened his grip on the boy. Just slightly, uncertainty creeping in. The boy's breathing slowed by a fraction when Nia stepped closer, lowering her voice, offering calm instead of commands. But the room wasn't ready for compassion. Search her, someone said again. Nia felt her stomach drop. She realized in that moment that speaking up had placed a target on her back. This wasn't about a missing bracelet anymore. It was about control, power, and deciding who belonged in that space. And Nia understood something else, too. Walking away would be easier, but staying would cost her everything. The manager raised his hand slightly, and the room obeyed without question. Let's keep this orderly, he said, his tone practiced and detached. Security, proceed. The guard stepped toward Nia first. Her breath caught, but she did not step back. She stood still as hands reached for her bag, fingers brushing against the zipper like she was already guilty. Phones shifted, zooming closer, hungry for reaction. Nia felt her cheeks burn, not from fear, but from the sudden awareness that she was being judged. Before she spoke again. You don't need to do this, she said quietly. I didn't take anything. The woman who accused the boy scoffed loudly. That's what they all say. The words hit harder than the search itself. The guard opened Nia's bag slowly, deliberately, as if dragging out the moment would teach her something. Inside were a notebook, a pen, interview papers neatly folded, and a phone with a cracked screen. No bracelet. No stolen item. Nothing worth the attention it was getting. Silence followed, not the kind that brought relief, but the kind that waited for the next excuse. Well? Someone whispered. The manager cleared his throat. Check the boy again. The guard turned back toward the boy whose breathing had sped up once more. The crowd pressed closer, tightening the circle. The boy whimpered softly, his hands flapping faster as his senses overloaded. Nia stepped between them instinctively, putting her body in front of his. Stop, she said. You're making it worse. The guard hesitated, irritation flickering across his face. Move aside. She didn't. That was when the tone changed. You're interfering, the manager said sharply. You don't belong in this situation. Nia looked around the room. She saw curiosity, discomfort, and satisfaction mixed together. Some people avoided eye contact. Others stared openly, enjoying the spectacle. No one spoke up. No one asked for proof. No one suggested patience. The woman missing her bracelet crossed her arms tighter. Maybe she passed it to him, she said. You never know. The suggestion lingered in the air, poisonous and deliberate. The boy let out a sharp cry, then a sound that cut through the lobby. His knees buckled slightly, and the guard grabbed him again, this time with less restraint. Gasps followed, but still no intervention. Nia's chest tightened painfully as she watched panic swallow him whole. He needs space, Nia said again, louder now. You're hurting him. The manager frowned. Lower your voice. I won't, she replied. That single word shifted everything. Security's posture hardened. The manager's patience vanished. The crowd sensed escalation and leaned in closer. The room no longer felt neutral. It felt hostile. You're being disruptive, the manager said. If you don't step aside, you'll be escorted out. Nia laughed once, humorless and sharp. You're already humiliating him. Escorting me won't fix that. Murmurs spread quickly. The woman shook her head. Unbelievable. Always making trouble. Nia felt the insult land exactly where it was meant to. She understood the message clearly. Stay quiet. Know your place. Protecting someone like him was inconvenient. The guard tightened his grip again. That was when the boy collapsed. His knees hit the floor hard, his body folding inward as his breathing turned ragged. The noise overwhelmed him completely. He covered his ears, rocking back and forth, tears streaking down his face. Gasps erupted, followed by discomfort rather than compassion. "This is ridiculous," someone muttered. I dropped to the floor beside him without hesitation. She lowered her voice, blocking out the room as best she could. "It's okay," she said gently. "You're safe. Breathe with me." The guard looked unsure now. The manager looked annoyed. "Get her away from him," the manager ordered. The guard hesitated again. That hesitation cost him. "Now," the manager snapped. Hands grabbed Naya's arm, pulling her away. Her shoes slid against the marble as she struggled to keep balance. The boy cried out louder, reaching toward her, desperate and terrified. The sound made several guests flinch, but no one stopped what was happening. "Don't touch her," a voice finally said. It came from the back of the crowd. People turned, startled by the interruption. A man in a tailored suit stepped forward, his expression tight with concern. "This has gone far enough." The manager straightened immediately. "Sir, this is an internal matter." The man glanced at the boy on the floor, then at Nia being held by security. "It doesn't look internal," he said. "It looks cruel." Relief flickered briefly through Nia's chest. It didn't last. The woman missing her bracelet scoffed again. "Oh, please. You don't know what happened." The man paused. "Then explain it." The manager jumped in quickly. "A theft accusation. We're handling it by traumatizing a child?" The man asked. The room grew quiet again. The manager's jaw tightened. "Sir, unless you're involved, I am now," the man replied. Security loosened their grip on Nia slightly, uncertainty spreading. Nia straightened, her arm aching where fingers had dug in. She met the man's eyes briefly and nodded in gratitude. But the relief didn't reach the boy. His breathing remained uneven. His hands still trembled. The damage had already been done. Paramedics were called shortly after, more to manage liability than concern. The crowd dispersed slowly, disappointment evident on faces that didn't get the ending they wanted. The woman left angrily, bracelet still missing, dignity untouched. Nia stayed. She sat beside the boy until his breathing slowed enough for him to look up. When he did, their eyes met briefly. He was glassy, confused, and still afraid. She smiled softly, hoping it helped. "You did good," she whispered. He didn't respond. But he didn't pull away either. That was when a new realization settled over. Nia, standing up, had protected him for a moment, but it had also marked her, and the people in that room would not forget it. The office smelled of polished wood and anxiety. People shuffled papers as though pretending to be busy would erase what had just happened. Nia stood near the back, arms crossed, silent but observing. She knew every eye was on her, curious, judgmental, or downright scornful. The manager, now red-faced and fuming, tried to regain control. "Let's finish this quickly. The boy will be taken to a private room for questioning. That's all." His voice faltered slightly, betraying frustration. "Private room?" Nia asked, loud enough to carry. "Or a place where he can be humiliated further without witnesses?" A hush fell across the room. A few guests looked away, uncomfortable with the confrontation. Others smirked, intrigued by Nia's boldness. The manager turned sharply. "You need to leave." She didn't budge. Her presence alone was a challenge, a silent declaration that she wouldn't allow cruelty to go unchecked. The security guard, still holding her arm loosely from earlier, tensed. "Or what?" he muttered under his breath. Nia glanced at him, calm but steady. "Or we all start remembering that bystander silence is complicity. And I refuse to be complicit." A murmur ran through the onlookers. Whispers became louder, some questioning the ethics of the situation, others defending the manager blindly. The woman who accused the boy earlier crossed her arms, lips pressed tight and eyes narrowed. "Excuse me," she said sharply. "This isn't your concern. You're out of line, out of line." Nia's laugh was quiet but cutting. I'm the only one here who recognizes injustice when I see it. The boy's breathing had stabilized slightly, but he still looked pale and weak. He clung to the edge of the chair, eyes wide. Every person who had laughed or gawked at him now felt a sudden twinge of guilt, even if fleeting. Nia stepped closer, putting a protective hand on his shoulder. The manager fumed, pacing behind his desk like a caged predator. You don't get to lecture me. I run this office. I'll decide what happens here. Nia met his eyes evenly. You run it, yes. But you don't get to abuse it. Her words seemed to hang in the air, heavier than any accusation had before. Some employees shifted uncomfortably, whispering amongst themselves. For the first time, the manager realized he wasn't surrounded by unquestioning obedience. Enough! He barked, voice cracking slightly. Security escorted her out. 2 guards approached. Nia didn't resist but didn't move either. Her calm defiance drew attention. Cameras, phones pulled from pockets by curious employees focused on her. Some were recording. Some were watching silently. But everyone noticed. You can try, she said softly, almost to herself. But the truth has a way of showing itself. A sudden movement drew everyone's attention. The woman who had accused the boy was suddenly flustered. She fumbled in her bag, her phone buzzing incessantly. She glanced around nervously. What's happening? She whispered. It was then that Nia noticed it too. Notifications, pings, and flashes on multiple devices. Someone had started streaming the scene live. Social media notifications were multiplying in real time. Employees whispered the word viral, and it hung in the room like smoke. The manager's face was drained of color. What? Who? Nia didn't answer. She didn't need to. The evidence of their cruelty was now beyond denial. Everyone watching online could see, the boy terrified. The unjust accusations, the blatant abuse of power. The woman with the bracelet paled. She scowled at Nia, lips pressed tight, hands shaking slightly. This is what happens when people refuse to look away. Nia finished for her, eyes sharp and unwavering. The manager slammed his hand on the desk. Papers flew. Turn it off. Stop broadcasting. Phones kept pinging. The footage was already out. Notifications continued to pour in, comments flooding with outrage, empathy, and anger. The boy had become the symbol of public injustice in minutes. Nia knelt beside him again. You're safe now. We'll make sure of it, she whispered. He looked up at her with wide, trembling eyes. A fragile trust had begun to form. He nodded slightly, unable to speak, but clinging to the only person in the room who hadn't treated him like a criminal. Everyone who's watching can see what's real, Nia said, standing now. Her voice carried through the room, commanding yet calm. And everyone who stayed silent is now accountable. The manager's fury grew, but it was laced with panic. He turned to call someone, presumably higher up, but the live stream had already reached multiple devices outside the office. Whispers of, "This is outrageous," and "This boy didn't do anything," spread faster than he could react. Employees started moving subtly, recording footage or sharing it discreetly. Some looked at him nervously, realizing that siding with cruelty could ruin their reputations. Fear replaced loyalty. The woman who had accused the boy tried to leave the room unnoticed, but a few sharp voices called her out. "Where's the bracelet?" one demanded. "Explain yourself." She froze, sweat beading on her forehead. Nia's eyes were on her, unrelenting. "You accuse without proof, humiliate without reason, and yet you stand there pretending nothing happened," Nia said. "Do you really expect the world to forget?" Her words landed like hammers. The woman's composure cracked visibly, lips trembling, voice caught in her throat. The manager barked, "Enough! This stops now." But it couldn't stop. Not anymore. Outside the office, social media erupted. Hashtags started trending, screenshots circulated, and the injustice was being dissected with commentary, outrage, and support for the boy. People from outside the company joined the conversation, demanding accountability, questioning the ethics of the staff, and expressing solidarity with Nia and the boy. The manager realized that the Humiliation he had intended for Nia and the boy had backfired spectacularly. Every attempt to assert authority only amplified the attention and public scrutiny. His power was unraveling. Nia, sensing the shift, allowed herself a small, private smile. The boy, still fragile, looked at her with a mixture of fear and admiration. She had protected him, and now the scales were tipping. "Stay calm," she whispered to him. "They can't hurt you anymore. Not like this." The guard who had grabbed her earlier looked around nervously. His eyes met hers for a moment, and he subtly stepped back, uncertainty creeping into his posture. Even he realized the dynamic had changed. Meanwhile, the woman who had caused all this chaos could no longer meet Nia's gaze. Every employee, every witness, and every online viewer could see what had been done and who had done it. The boy, finally able to stand with Nia's support, looked around the room. His fear hadn't disappeared, but the courage to endure had taken root. The manager's authority had been publicly questioned, employees were hesitant. And Nia's presence had turned from tolerated defiance into undeniable power. The room was still, tense and heavy with accountability. Nia's gaze swept across the witnesses, lingering on the guilty, the shocked and the fearful alike. She didn't need to say more. The impact of their actions and the consequence of their cruelty was already evident. She glanced at the boy one last time. "Hold on, this isn't over yet," she said quietly. "But justice is coming." The hum of notifications, the camera flashes, and the whispers of the crowd created a crescendo. A wave of exposure that no manager, guard, or false accuser could ignore. For the first time, Nia knew that her actions, her courage, her refusal to back down had not just protected a single boy. They had started a ripple that would be impossible to stop. And the humiliation, which had been meant to crush, had turned into a weapon, one that she now wielded carefully, but with deadly precision. The manager sank into his chair, powerless as the reality of what was happening set in. Nia's quiet strength had shifted the balance. No shouting, no threats, no attempts at authority could reclaim what had already been exposed. And outside, millions were watching. The office was still buzzing with tension. Employees whispered quietly among themselves, eyes darting toward the manager, who now slumped in his chair like a man realizing the walls of his authority were crumbling. The live stream had spread across social media, gaining traction by the second. People outside the office were already weighing in, their outrage tangible in every comment and share. Nia stepped aside, giving the boy a subtle nod. "Are you ready?" she asked quietly. He hesitated for a moment, fear and uncertainty flickering across his face. But there was also something new, a spark. He nodded slowly, trusting her guidance. "Good, stay close," she said. Her voice was calm, almost comforting. But beneath it lay a current of determination that carried authority. The manager, sensing something was shifting, barked at a junior employee. "Check the cameras, stop them. Someone do something." The employee froze, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Sir, it's too late. The footage is everywhere. We can't stop it now." The manager's face went pale. No, this can't be happening," he muttered. Every attempt to reclaim control was met with the cold reality that power alone no longer ruled. Public exposure had become the true authority. Meanwhile, Nia guided the boy toward a small conference room, away from the manager's immediate reach. Once inside, she turned to him, crouching slightly to meet his eyes. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," she whispered. "They can't intimidate you when the world is watching." He swallowed hard. "But what if they retaliate?" "They will," she admitted. "But we're going to make sure it doesn't stick. We're turning the tables. They wanted humiliation, they'll get it in a way they never expected." Outside, the office staff were reacting in real time. Some were trying to whisper excuses to each other, others were silently panicking. Employees who had laughed at the boy moments ago now avoided eye contact. Uncomfortable with the unfolding spectacle, Nia stepped back into the main office, letting the boy observe from the safety of the conference room. She knew the manager's ego would make him act rashly, as she was ready to capitalize on it. The manager, now pacing like a trapped animal, slammed his fist on the desk. "Stop the live stream. Someone do something, now." An employee finally spoke, voice trembling. "Sir, we can't. It's already viral. People are watching everywhere. Even the press." "Press?" He barked. "What press? Who's here?" But no one answered. The fear in the room was tangible. No one wanted to be responsible for his next outburst. And outside, millions had already witnessed the injustice. Nia seized the moment. She walked over to the manager's desk, her presence calm, deliberate, and commanding. "You've spent years thinking your authority is absolute," she said, voice steady. "But today the truth has proven stronger than your intimidation." He scowled, eyes flashing with anger. "You don't understand, this is business. Rules, I make the rules here." "Rules?" she echoed. "Rules don't give you the right to humiliate, abuse, or terrorize someone weaker than you. And rules certainly don't shield you from accountability when the world sees your actions." She pulled out her phone, holding it up like a weapon. Notifications were pouring in, every ping reinforcing the magnitude of their failure. "Every moment, every person who witnessed your cruelty is now a witness to justice. And your employees are starting to remember that silence is complicity." Some employees whispered, some nodded subtly. Fear was quickly turning into moral alignment. Even those who had laughed at the boy moments ago realized they could no longer stay silent without consequence. The manager's composure finally cracked. He shouted, but it lacked conviction. This is ridiculous." "You can't." "Yes, I can," Nia interrupted. "And you will." She directed the boy to step forward. His hands shook slightly, but Nia's steadying presence gave him courage. He straightened his posture, taking a deep breath. "Say something," she encouraged quietly. He looked at the manager directly. "I didn't do anything wrong," he said, voice trembling but firm. "I don't deserve this. No one should ever treat someone like this because of who they are or what they own or don't own." A silence filled the room. The manager's jaw tightened, and for a moment it seemed he might explode. But outside, the sound of notifications continued, a digital echo of accountability that no yelling could drown out. Then Nia spoke again, this time addressing the employees. "You saw what happened. You heard the accusations. You witnessed the humiliation. And you did nothing. Now it's your choice: continue hiding behind fear or join justice." Some employees began murmuring support. Others shifted uncomfortably. The power dynamic had completely inverted. Fear no longer ruled. Moral responsibility did. The boy, now slightly steadier, added, I forgive those who were cruel to me. But I won't let it happen to anyone else." Nia nodded approvingly. "Exactly. That's why we're taking action. Not out of revenge, but to make sure this never happens again." The manager's hands trembled on the desk. He realized that his authority had evaporated in the glare of public scrutiny. Every employee who had once obeyed blindly now questioned him. Every device capturing footage was a testament to his failure. Nia had one final move. She reached for the office intercom, pressing a button. The entire building could hear her voice. "Attention, this is an official notice. Effective immediately, the manager and all staff involved in today's incident are under investigation. Public humiliation, abuse, and intimidation will not be tolerated here or anywhere. Any further attempts at retaliation will be documented and reported." The manager's face went white. He staggered back, realizing the full scale of what was happening. Employees murmured, some filming, some nodding, some visibly shaken. The live stream continued to broadcast every second. Nia turned back to the boy. "It's done for now. But the world knows your truth, and that's more powerful than anything they can throw at you." He looked at her, a mixture of awe and relief on his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "No," Nia said softly. "Thank you for trusting me. And thank you for standing tall when it mattered most." Outside, social media exploded. Comments flooded in, hashtags trended, and journalists began calling for interviews. The boy's courage and Nia's strategic actions had ignited a storm that couldn't be ignored. The manager, realizing that his humiliation had turned full circle, sank into his chair, powerless, defeated, and publicly exposed. Every attempt to regain control only confirmed the narrative of his cruelty. Nia, meanwhile, stood tall. She had orchestrated a counter-move that was as subtle as it was devastating. The boy had regained dignity, the employees were awakening to accountability, and the manager's downfall had begun a slow, inevitable collapse fueled by exposure and moral reckoning. The tension in the room remained, but now it was different. Fear had shifted to awareness, embarrassment to accountability, humiliation to justice. The boy, once terrified and powerless, now felt the first stirrings of empowerment. Nia's guidance had turned fear into strategy, silence into voice, and cruelty into a lesson that no one could ignore. And outside, the world watched. The office had become a quiet battlefield. The manager's previous authority had evaporated entirely, replaced by an uneasy tension that hung in the air like thick smoke. Every glance, every whisper reminded him that the balance of power had shifted. He tried to regain composure, clearing his throat and attempting to speak, but his voice was hollow, lacking the commanding tone he had wielded for years. Nia, standing near the conference room doorway, observed him calmly. She had spent weeks planning these steps, anticipating his reactions, and now the culmination was unfolding perfectly. The boy, once timid and hesitant, had gained a quiet strength. He sat in the room, surrounded by the protective presence of Nia, yet aware that the attention of the entire office and soon the world was on him. Each ping of the phone, each notification of a new share, reminded him that he was no longer alone. The manager slumped in his chair, trying to regain some semblance of control. This is absurd," he muttered. "I am your superior. You can't—" "Yes, I can," Nia interrupted firmly, cutting through his protests. "Because authority isn't defined by fear. It's defined by integrity. And you've had none of it today." The employees around the office shifted uncomfortably. Some had hidden their fear under smiles and whispers, but the reality of accountability had set in. They no longer laughed. They observed, they judged, they understood the magnitude of what had transpired. Nia activated a screen at the front of the room. A montage of video clips taken from multiple angles played across it. The boy's humiliation, the manager's cruelty, and the reactions of employees were all displayed for anyone who entered the room, or anyone watching the live stream online. The manager's face went ashen. He had underestimated the impact of technology and exposure. Every action, every cruel word was laid bare. There was no way to hide behind excuses now. This can't be real," he stammered. "It is," Nia said. "And the world is watching. People are already reacting. Your career, your reputation, everything you've built on fear is now unraveling." She turned to the boy. "Do you want to say something?" He took a deep breath. I want everyone to know the truth. I wasn't afraid anymore, and I won't be silenced. No one should ever be treated like that." His words, simple yet powerful, resonated across the office and the live audience. A silence followed, punctuated only by the occasional notification ding, a reminder that the story was spreading faster than anyone could control. Nia continued, now addressing the manager directly. "You've humiliated, insulted, and terrorized those beneath you for years. Today, you've learned that the world will not tolerate that behavior. You may have thought your position protected you, but the truth has no fear of authority." The manager sank further into his chair, defeated. His employees, who had previously feared retaliation, now whispered among themselves, some recording, some taking notes. The power dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Legal notices began arriving. Nia had already contacted authorities earlier, anticipating the manager's attempts to manipulate the narrative. Within minutes, an official from the labor board arrived, followed by a security team. They presented the manager with a formal notice of investigation for harassment, intimidation, and workplace abuse. The manager's protests fell on deaf ears. "This is ridiculous. I'm innocent." "You have no," the official cut him off. "The evidence is clear. You will be required to attend a full hearing, and the company will be under review." Any attempts to intimidate witnesses or obstruct justice will be recorded and prosecuted. The manager's face paled. He had spent years manipulating employees, bending rules, and hiding behind authority. Now every tactic he had relied on was useless. Exposure, accountability, and law had aligned against him. Outside the office, the social media storm intensified. Videos went viral, news outlets reported on the incident, and hashtags demanding justice for the boy and accountability for the manager trended globally. Nia had anticipated this. Public pressure would ensure that the manager's fall was complete, irreversible. Inside, the boy stood up, feeling a surge of confidence he had never known. "This is over," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "I'm free." Nia smiled subtly. Not just free, vindicated and stronger than before. The manager, meanwhile, was escorted from the premises under the watchful eyes of security. Employees looked on, some relieved, some contemplative. The office, once a place of fear, was now a place where accountability had triumphed. Nia addressed the remaining staff. "What happened here today is a lesson. No one is untouchable. No one's cruelty will go unnoticed. And no act of humiliation will remain unchallenged." She handed the boy a small envelope. "This contains everything you need to reclaim your dignity fully. Documentation, contacts, and evidence. You will never be at the mercy of someone like him again." He took it, tears welling up, but this time they were tears of relief and empowerment rather than fear. "Thank you," he whispered. "You did it yourself," Nia corrected gently. "I only guided you. Courage is something that grows when tested, and today you proved it beyond doubt." News reporters began arriving. Cameras flashed, questions were asked, and the boy shared his story carefully, with Nia coaching him. He spoke about fear, injustice, resilience, and the importance of standing up. His words resonated, gaining millions of views and inspiring countless others who had experienced similar treatment. The manager's reputation, once untouchable, had crumbled completely. Public opinion turned swiftly against him. Attempts to defend his actions were drowned out by the overwhelming evidence and collective outrage. Humiliation had transformed into poetic justice. The same fear he had imposed on others now mirrored in the scrutiny and accountability he faced. By the end of the day, the office was quiet, calm, and reflective. Employees had begun discussing reforms, ethics, and workplace integrity. Fear had been replaced by empowerment, injustice by awareness, and silence by voice. Nia watched the boy step outside for the first time since the ordeal began. He stood in the sunlight taking deep breaths, a smile of genuine relief crossing his face. "This is only the beginning," Nia said softly. "You've reclaimed your voice. Now you can use it to protect yourself and others." The boy nodded. "I understand. I won't forget what happened. And I'll make sure no one else goes through what I did." Nia's mission had succeeded. The manager had been humiliated, exposed, and held accountable. The boy had been empowered, vindicated, and guided to reclaim his dignity. Justice had been served, not through revenge, but through strategy, evidence, and courage. Outside, the world continued to watch. Social media buzzed, news reports circulated, and the boy's story became a symbol, testament to the power of standing up, speaking out, and confronting cruelty with courage. The manager, once feared and untouchable, had been toppled. And in his place rose awareness, accountability, and the knowledge that no act of humiliation, no abuse of authority, and no attempt to silence the vulnerable would ever go unnoticed again. Justice had been delivered, not with anger, but with strategy, courage, and a plan that ensured the right outcome for everyone involved. The boy's life had changed forever, and those who had underestimated him had learned a lesson they would never forget. The office doors closed behind the last officials, leaving a quiet space filled with reflection, relief, and newfound strength. The boy had reclaimed his dignity. Nia had executed her plan flawlessly, and the world had witnessed the fall of cruelty. Replaced by the triumph of justice, the sun had begun its slow descent, casting long golden rays across the office building where the events of the day had unfolded. The air was calm, yet it carried the weight of everything that had changed in just 24 hours. The boy walked slowly through the empty halls, each step a reminder that the fear he had carried for so long had finally been replaced by something stronger: confidence. Every wall, every desk, every echo of footsteps told him that the story he had endured was not merely a personal struggle. It was a lesson for everyone who had ever been silenced, humiliated, or made to feel invisible. He paused in front of the conference room where the final confrontation had occurred. The memory of the manager's face, pale with shock and fear, still lingered. That image had been burned into his mind, not as a mark of cruelty, but as proof that courage, when wielded wisely, could dismantle even the most oppressive of forces. The boy's hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of survival and the intensity of transformation. He had emerged from the ordeal different, not hardened, but refined. His heart carried resilience, his mind clarity, and his spirit an unshakable understanding that dignity could never be stolen, only defended. Naya approached quietly, her footsteps soft but deliberate. She did not speak immediately, giving him the space to absorb the enormity of what had happened. Finally she said, "Do you feel it?" He turned to her, uncertainty in his eyes, though it was quickly replaced by the faintest smile. "Feel what?" "Freedom," she replied. "The freedom that comes not from someone else's mercy, but from your own courage. You didn't just survive today, you reclaimed your life." He nodded slowly, letting the words settle. There was no grand celebration, no fanfare. The moment was quiet, almost reverent. Yet within the calmness, there was a powerful energy and understanding that the events of the day had shifted not only his trajectory, but also the atmosphere of the entire office, the wider community, and perhaps in some small way, the world beyond. The boy thought back to the countless moments of fear and humiliation. The whispers, the sneers, the silent judgment that had hung over him like an invisible cage. For years, he had accepted that life was defined by other people's perceptions, by their power over him, by their capacity to humiliate and dismiss him. But today, every chain had been broken. Today he had spoken, acted, and risen above what had once seemed insurmountable. Nia smiled, seeing the reflection of understanding dawn in his eyes. "Courage isn't just about standing up in the moment of conflict," she explained. "It's about recognizing injustice, planning carefully, and then executing with clarity. The world often rewards patience and strategy more than anger. You've learned that today." He thought about the manager, once untouchable, now exposed and defeated. The knowledge of that transformation was almost dizzying. For so long, the manager had seemed omnipotent, a shadow that darkened every corner of the boy's life. Now, that shadow had been removed, replaced by light, accountability, and the visible reminder that cruelty could never truly hide from truth. Word of the events had spread far beyond the office walls. Social media was flooded with commentary, discussions about ethics, and stories from others who had faced similar treatment. Messages of support arrived from strangers, professionals, and even mentors who had followed the story. The boy realized that his ordeal, once personal and isolating, had become a source of empowerment for many. His voice, once silenced, now carried influence and meaning. Nia placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Do you understand the legacy you've begun to create?" He looked at her, puzzled. "Legacy?" "Yes," she said, her voice firm but encouraging. "You've shown the world that humiliation is not permanent, that injustice can be challenged, and that courage paired with wisdom can dismantle even the strongest barriers. People are watching, learning, and drawing strength from what you've done." The boy absorbed her words slowly. He realized that the events of today had not only affected the manager or his office. They had ignited a spark of hope for anyone who had ever been belittled, overlooked, or silenced. His experience had become more than personal vindication. It had become a symbol of possibility, a testament to the power of standing up, speaking out, and refusing to be broken. Nia continued, "It's important to remember that this is only the beginning. You have reclaimed your voice, but the lessons you've learned, the strength you've gained, and the courage you've shown will guide you in every challenge ahead. Asterisk asterisk the world may test you again, but you now know that fear can be confronted and injustice can be overcome. Asterisk asterisk the boy's eyes glistened with unshed tears, not of sorrow but of recognition. He thought about his family, his friends, and the countless others who might have been silently enduring similar abuse. Asterisk asterisk he understood finally that standing up for oneself could create ripples far beyond his own life. Every act of courage, every refusal to accept humiliation, could inspire others to act. Asterisk asterisk he looked around the empty office one last time. The desks, once instruments of control and fear, now felt ordinary, almost neutral. The echoes of whispers and laughter that had once intimidated him had been replaced by silence, reflection, and a sense of equilibrium. Asterisk 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 he felt a profound peace settle over him. The world had not changed entirely in a day, but his world had shifted irrevocably. Asterisk asterisk, thank you, Nia, he said quietly, his voice steady. For guiding me, for believing in me, and for showing me that fear can be transformed into strength. Asterisk asterisk Nia smiled, a glimmer of pride in her eyes. The strength was always inside you. I merely helped you see it. Remember this, dignity cannot be stolen. Cruelty cannot stand forever. And the courage to act will always outlast fear. Asterisk asterisk the boy felt a surge of determination. He had survived a humiliation, confronted injustice, and reclaimed his life. Now, with Nia's guidance and his newfound confidence, he knew that he could face the future with a clarity and resilience that would carry him through any challenge. Asterisk asterisk outside, the city continued its rhythm. People moved about their lives, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded within the office walls. Yet for the boy, the significance of the day lingered in every breath, every heartbeat. Asterisk 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 the world had witnessed the triumph of justice, the power of courage, and the downfall of cruelty. And though life would continue with its uncertainties, he was no longer a passive observer. He was an actor, a survivor, and a beacon for others who had endured similar struggles. Asterisk asterisk as he stepped into the sunlight, he felt the warmth not just on his skin but in his spirit. He understood that every act of bravery, no matter how small, contributed to a larger narrative, a narrative of integrity, resilience, and justice. Asterisk asterisk he was no longer defined by the fear others had tried to impose on him. He was defined by the courage he had summoned, the dignity he had reclaimed, and the legacy he was beginning to build. Asterisk asterisk Nia watched silently as he walked away, her heart swelling with quiet satisfaction. Her mission had always been to empower, guide, and illuminate the path to justice. Today she had achieved that. Asterisk 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 the boy's story, now etched into the consciousness of those who had witnessed it, would serve as a powerful reminder that fear and cruelty could be confronted, challenged, and overcome. Asterisk asterisk in the days that followed, the boy continued to speak out, sharing his story with others, mentoring peers, and advocating for fairness and integrity. The manager faced formal disciplinary actions, legal consequences, and widespread public scrutiny. Asterisk asterisk every attempt to regain authority or manipulate perception failed. His downfall was total, not just in career, but in reputation, influence, and control. Asterisk asterisk the moral of the story was clear: humiliation, cruelty, and abuse are temporary when confronted with courage, strategy, and truth. Justice is not always immediate, but when sought with clarity and persistence, it can be absolute. Asterisk 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 the boy's journey from fear to empowerment became a blueprint for resilience, a narrative that would inspire countless others, and a reminder that dignity is not given, it is reclaimed. Asterisk asterisk and as the sun set fully, bathing the city in warm orange hues, the boy and Nia stood together for a final moment. The journey was far from over, but the foundation had been laid. The battle against injustice had been fought and won. Asterisk asterisk the power of courage, wisdom, and strategic action had been proven beyond doubt. And the world, whether ready or not, had witnessed a transformation that would ripple far beyond a single office, a single manager, or a single individual. Asterisk this was more than victory. It was a legacy. Before you leave, remember this: Courage isn't just about standing up once, it's about refusing to stay silent, about fighting for what's right even when the odds seem impossible. Asterisk asterisk today, you witnessed a young boy take back his dignity, challenge injustice, and leave a lasting mark on everyone around him. But his journey doesn't end here. Asterisk asterisk in the next episode, we'll follow another story of betrayal, cunning, and shocking justice where the powerless rise and the arrogant fall. You don't want to miss it. Asterisk asterisk, subscribe now and hit the bell icon so you're the first to witness the next twist of fate. Like this video if it inspired you and share it to remind someone else that courage and resilience can change everything. Asterisk, your voice, your support, and your presence matter. Join us and be part of these unforgettable stories.